everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just a bit of an intro while people log on. I'm Danica Warburton and I run the investor relations for Firefinch. As you're no doubt aware, it's been a big week for Firefinch with the Marilla resource upgrade followed by the Goulamina lithium demerger. So we've got lots to talk about today, and we've actually put together a new presentation as well just for you to run you through. So without further ado, I'll hand over to the man of the moment, Executive Chairman of Firefinch, Dr. Alastair Cowden.
Thank you very much, Danica, and good morning to everyone in Western Australia. Good afternoon to those in the eastern states of Australia, and elsewhere, just good day. To all those existing shareholders of the company, I'd just like to say thank you for your patience and support. It's much appreciated. And to the new shareholders, welcome to the roller coaster ride. It's never dull in this company, and it's quite good fun. But anyway, I might ask Danica to start putting up the slides, and I'll run through those with you now. Okay, there we go. So we can flick onto there's the mine, but let's carry on. Okay, so really, we could almost stop here. The company at its simplest as an investment proposition is quite unusual. It's the circumstance we find ourselves in. We own one of Africa's great gold mines. 7.5 million ounces past production, 10 million ounces of endowment, and we own it. And our aim is to grow the gold production currently at the mine to much higher levels. And that is complemented by a world-class lithium deposit at Goulamina, which we announced this week. We want to spin out and give shareholders the opportunity to own a share in gold and a share in lithium. So next one, please. Yeah, just some background. We don't need to spend any time here. This is on the web. We have a little bit of cash in hand, probably a bit more than that. We've been accumulating money through production, although we still are spending on refurbishment. Market cap today is probably around the 200 million mark. And as you can see, we have no large dominant shareholders as yet, and largely institutional register. Next slide, please. So to come back to the strategy, we're running a real business at Marilla, and a big focus for the company is safety. I've worked in mines all my life, and safety first. I know investors hear this all the time. Get this stuff wrong, it can destroy a business. Safety matters to us, as do local and community investment. We try and buy and hire local. The big aim that we have, which we put out this week, is we believe that the resource we've put out, the work that we're undertaking on reserves, will allow us to grow into a 200,000 ounce per annum producer for a considerable period of time. Now that's quite a mine. Think, West African Resources, Cardinal, all those kind of people that you've seen go through the roof in recent years. Marilla's not over. We got the current resource of 2.35 million ounces without really drilling a hole. Now we're doing that now, and we're looking at our land holding, and there's much more to be found on that ground holding. And the other thing is corporate. Once you've got a good asset, you've got to do something with it. I think for our kinds of company, there's one of two things is going to happen. You're going to buy another asset and grow that way, or someone's going to buy you and you'll participate in that. I'm agnostic and all that kind of thing, except for one thing, which is that bottom line shareholder value. There's no ego involved in this. If there are deals to be done and we can participate and it generates value, then we will look at it. So on Goulamina, very simple proposition. I think it's clear that you cannot deliver the love and the focus that's needed to both assets within one company. It's also clear that I think if you separate the assets, that shareholders will be rewarded with a greater valuation. The sum of the parts will be greater than what we are today. So you'll get two things. You'll keep your Firefinch share, and then when we get to the end of the process, which I'll talk about later, it's not an easy one, you'll get a lithium share. And in addition to that, in this next few days, I'll hope to announce the start of a formal process and partnering and financing for Goulamina. Next one, please. So just a little map to remind you about Mali. I'll just say a few things briefly in Mali about Mali. It's West Africa. This is not Australia. Politics are different. We had unrest last year, but the country is functioning well. There's a civilian government in place, and free and fair elections are promised. Mining industry works there in a landlocked country where everything comes in by truck really efficiently, and you can see the number of mines there in Mali and elsewhere. It's a world-class, this would be bigger than Western Australia. This is a serious world-class gold field, and we're right in the thick of it with probably one of the first and best mines in its heyday. So we are very happy and comfortable operating in Mali, and we have great relations with the government. And I'd ask those who are interested in this kind of thing, go and look at the interview with the Minister of Mines that's on our website. And he says some great things about what this company is doing, and all credit to Mark Bristow and Randgold for putting all that in place that we inherited. So next slide, please. So this is more on this, and the mine, your mine, on your behalf, we are out there and we spend money in the community, and we're doing, these were all set up by Randgold and Anglo, and there's much going on. We're doing a lot with COVID. We've bought a PCR machine such that we can test our workforce and in the communities to help the medical people we employ manage any of that. The incidence is still quite low as far as we know. We support businesses that we've established, including fish farm. There are fish ponds in the mine water storage dam, and we make a lot of chicken. As you can see there from the numbers, there's a lot of chickens out there. And this is important if you're dealing these days in Africa and you want to attract serious institutional investment. You're always asked about ESG, and we are moving to get full transparency on that, and hopefully we'll be able to talk in the future about our compliance with the International Finance Corporation guidelines. So we're doing really well, but I want to do better. I want to make a real difference in these communities, and mindset and attitude makes as much difference as money. So we're really quite pleased with what we've inherited there. So on to Marilla the Gorilla, so called, named by Mark Bristow because it was a beast of a mine. So this mine produced 1.2 million ounces in its second year of production. That pit produced nearly 7.5 million ounces. It was a fantastic mine, and it's been in continuous production for 20 years. So this is a mine with all the infrastructure, skills, people that you'd expect, procurement teams, HR, union structures, you name it, all the soft issues that you don't normally talk about are all in place, as well as the technical skills. So we have a fantastic asset, and we're very lucky. So we're producing gold, as you can see, around that 10,000 ounces a quarter, and that cash flow has been accumulated and being applied to refurbishment and drilling and so forth. The key thing, as I mentioned before, and we'll show you more of this, is we're looking to restart mining and the mill in about May, June this year, and more will come on that as we over this next few months as we get more certainty in mine plans. But we're getting back into open pit mining very, very soon. Mining tenders are out. And I talked before about the exploration upside, but I can't stress this enough. This mine was found in the mid-90s. And if you think about the way these things work, all the fuss and bother and happens in the after that. So really, when the mine was halfway through its life by the mid-2000s, it was all over. You could see there's no more coming from that pit at those gold prices, and nothing's been done. Gold prices have changed, and exploration mentality has changed. So there's enormous exploration upside. And the other thing is, we've got money, as I said, we've got money in the bank and bullion on hand, as well as accumulating more money. And next one, please. So just wanted to remind about what we're doing. We've only owned this mine for something like 12 weeks. We've done a lot, not least increasing the resource, producing gold. We're one of the key things here is what we inherited is a largely local workforce. We only have, including all the contractors, we probably only have 4 expatriates. That's quite unusual in Africa, and I have to tell you that in mines with hundreds plus expatriates, one, the costs are high and the culture is not ideal. And the Malian government love this, that we are largely that way, and we are going to keep doing it. I've talked before about being responsible. You have to be like that. And the other pleasing thing is I know, and I have engagement with shareholders who follow the share price minute by minute. But if you stand back, we've delivered value since before the Marilla deal. We've more than doubled the share price, and and hopefully we see that that kind of action continuing. Next, please. So, to the meat of what I want to talk about, I just want to clearly understand our plan for Marilla. It's really quite simple. So now we're reprocessing tailings, we're making money. For this next 6 months, that's what we'll be doing, or 5 months or whatever. We'll be starting pre-strip and other works at the satellite pits, and we're refurbishing the processing plant and re-establishing the tailings dam. And indeed, that pit, there've been tailings going into that pit from mining the tailings until only a week or so ago, and we've successfully re-established part of the tailings dam, and there'll still be significant investment required there to rebuild it back to capacity. But we're now doing all that, as well as spending money in drilling and so forth. So today, reprocessing around 40,000 ounces per annum nominal run rate. Then we restart the mill, and that is targeting May, maybe June. And there'll be multiple ore sources at first, with some stockpiles that have been were left over, which we're sampling, and the satellite pits, which I'll talk about a little later. And then get into Marilla. Once we understand it better, we can now get a resource that allows us to do mine planning. And during that, possibly later this year, we'll be starting to do some work at Marilla itself. Then there's the big beast, Marilla itself. Not quite sure when that's going to happen. That timing there actually is wrong. We might start something late in this year at Marilla in the pre-strip, but production I think will be next year. If you look at some of the sections that we'll see, you can see the ore will present relatively early. It's a big plant. It does 4.5 million tons a year. It's done it in the past for many years. It's actually doing 4.5, 5 in tailings at the moment. Recovery, we understand it's mining the same ore body, 90%. You do all that and you come up with a number getting on for 200,000 ounces of gold per annum. The actual number will fall out of the reserve and mine planning exercise, which is underway. So what we're looking at, my aspiration here is that we have a 200,000 ounce producer with mine life getting up for a decade or more, and exploration will supplement that. This is a serious asset in the making. And some of you have heard me talk before about a Dundee moment. Well, I think when it took a while for this to sink into me when we first looked at it, but it's clear this was a company making opportunity, Marilla. Absolutely fantastic ore body. Next, please. So there's just a little picture of the gold mining at the moment. That's you can see the big water cannons there. That's all flushed away. And we actually come in after that mining and clean up the floor. And I think we've stockpiled something like 300, 400,000 tons of material from the bottom of the tailings dam in front of the crusher, all ready for when we start again. It's about 50,000 odd ounces containable, but it's only 50 odd % recovery. So about 26,000 ounces remaining in the tailings dam or thereabouts. Next, please. So the satellite pits. So there were 3 pits that are on the granted mining lease, all accessed by haul road, where 110,000 ounces have been mined already. And we released earlier 113,000 ounces of gold remaining at those. But we've been drilling frantically to catch up. We have 3 drill rigs there now. We have an on-site laboratory, so turnaround is really, really very good. 3 to 5 days, but as the rigs are winding up, the turnaround's increasing. And what we're doing is we're going through a virtuous circle of drilling, resource upgrade, informs a new pit shell, go back, look again, do more drilling. So what we'll be announcing over this coming few weeks, a month or so, first resource for the Coting deposit that has not been mined. upgrades to the resources for the 3 that have been mined, and drilling that will inform those as we go through. We're in towards the back end of a mining tender process, which will we hope to let in the next probably next 2 to 4 weeks, which would allow us to make a formal decision to commence mining again by May, June. So this thing's all getting very real. We're right into it. We're actually dewatering the. You can see the Viper pit in Chola has a similar amount of water. We're well into dewatering that, and the water will be out and gone in another week and a half or so. So we're right into doing these things, and construction of the whole road to Coating, another 2 kilometers, will probably start in the next month or so as well. So when we're doing that, we look to probably more like 70, 80,000 ounces nominal throughput. Now here's Marilla. That's a big pit. It's going to get a lot bigger, and some of those waste dumps and so forth will have to move. Currently, it's got water, tailings, and some mine waste backfilled into it. Water's a relatively straightforward issue. This mine is putting water into the environment at the moment from the satellite pits. Every wet season, it puts water into the environment, and we're just going through the standard permitting to do the same again with the Marilla Super Pit. And you just dredge out the tailings as you go, which would be quite a bit into the mine life before we have to do too much of that. So next. So Marilla is now a 10 million ounce gold field with resources and past production. So this is a big system. And as I said, this is what we've done differently from the guys in the past. Is not because we're smarter, but because we're enabled by a different gold price. In 2008, the guys did, so if you like, a walkaway resource estimate around the pit at the prices of the day. And they did a very rough, ready, non-geological one, high cutoff grade, 1 gram, flat search ellipses, came up with around 1 million ounces or so, but it wasn't very economic at the prices of the day, and they never quoted a resource again. And a geologist has hardly looked at this since. You got to think this was only 40% owned by Barrick and Anglo. It's not, they were treating stockpiles, so the attributable ounces to these guys was down at the 20 to 40,000 ounces. But what we did is we did a lot of data validation. We found data that was in the mining server that hadn't been incorporated, some very good numbers. Some of those numbers in the middle of the release on Monday, I think, are from that database. The gold price allowed a different cutoff grade. We're looking at 0.4 of a gram, not 1. But what we did, the main amount of work, and this is by a group called Optero, informed by what we did, they're one of the best around. They created these 3-dimensional shapes, constrained shapes, credible geological shapes, pretending that the mining hadn't happened, and then tested it against that 7 million ounces of mining. So it was very credible, honored that. And what did we get? We got a much bigger resource, globally 2.35 million ounces. The grade's up 1.5 grams, so it looks very economic at these gold prices. And the classification is good. We've got over 1.2 million ounces in measured and indicated, tailings being the measured, which would be available to make reserves, and that's what we'll be doing. Next one. So I thought I'd just lead you through the process. You can see here the pit, and this section has drilling. There are many sections on the release that went out on Monday if you want to have a look. You can see there are a whole bunch of really good drilling close to the pit, including some quite high grades. So that's what you start with. And then if we go to the next one, here you can see the shapes and the shapes inside the pit in particular. And I really want to draw your attention to that ultra high grade stuff inside the pit. Marilla in its heyday was very high grade, 10, 20 gram head grades. And when they were mining, the pit was quite common. And they had one wonderful week in legend where the head grade was 80 grams. Now, you can see there the steep ramp with high grades, which continues into our pit. And then the flat, stacked, multiple loads, a geometry that's very common in gold deposits. Now we'll zoom out in the next one when we get there to have a look at it. But you can see here the grade in that main body is quite thick. We're dealing with something 40, 50 meters thick in places, and some pretty good grades in it as well in that red zone. So not far from the pit floor, and in places that you can see breaches of pit floor. So we expect ore to present quite quickly once we get Marilla cut back and up and running. And most of that stuff near the pit is all in the indicated category. The inferred is probably more like the left-hand side. So one of our challenges is, where does that high grade go? You can see in that section, there's one little pathetic little hole. There's not enough drilling. But maybe we'll go to the next one and we'll zoom out. And this is the system we created. It's all, depending how you look at it, it can be up to a couple of kilometers across. Depending how you slice and dice it. And you can see here the extensions. Much of the extensions outside that conceptual $1,800 pit are not classified and not reported, and not a much drilling either, and that's one of the reasons. But where there's drilling at an old underground prospect called Samacline, there's some high grades. We quoted a bit of an underground resource there. It's a bit of a nominal one, and in due course we will be looking for these. Where does this massive system go? You don't get 10 million ounces and it just disappears. So if we went back to my 3 stages, tailings now, satellite pits, and mine Marilla, I see a fourth. Where does Marilla go, and is there more? When Northern Star bought Dundee probably 15 years ago or something now, it didn't stop. This will be the same. It just needs money and some excitement around it. It's a fantastic ore body. It's I just can't believe. I think we've all lucked out big time in this acquisition. It's just can't believe it. So many good intersections. It's great to have be mucking around with 10-gram intersections in places rather than half a gram or a gram, which a lot of the industry is doing. Anyway, enough on Marilla. Next one, please. So what we're going to do, so we're going to go and take the mine design or based on the high classification resources and come up with a formal reserve and life of mine plan. It'll probably take us a month or two to do that, and all the information we've got, and it'll be continually informed by the updates and drilling. And then we'll also look at the concept of and the inferred resources being mined, and a super pit, if you like, a really big pit. That will, of course, require more drilling. But one of the interesting things I think we want to look at is the scale of this is such that this may actually benefit from, a bulk mining approach and, some big gear. But that's a mining. I'm enough of a mining engineer to know that I know nothing, and we'll let them play with that. We'll be commencing the pit dewatering to try and line up with the wet season, assuming that all the permits and everything are in place. All that scheduling and costs and drilling, as I said, was what we'll be doing. So this mine will be dramatically improved, including that chap wearing a hard hat. There's been a bit of a crackdown on PPE at site. Everyone's a bit casual when they're around the place, but they have a fantastic safety record. That's been a year, 2 years, I think, since a lost time accident, but can do better. Next one. Goulamina. Next one, thanks. So what we have at Goulamina is, the lithium industry is really interesting. If I spoke about lithium 6 months ago, 80% of the people listening would yawn and switch off, and suddenly it's all a flavor of the month again. But the bottom line here is all driven by geology. We have got a fantastic ore body, one of the world's best. It'd be in the top 5 hard rock mines in the deposits in the world. And if we went drilling, spent 10 million in drilling, we could probably increase that ranking. But why do that when you've got a 23-year life? So what we did over this last year, when no one cared, is we got the feasibility study completed and all the permits are in place. So this is a development-ready project. It's got great economics. That 1.7 billion is at higher spodumene prices than today, 650, I think it was. But at today's prices, which are still low, you get, I think, around 300-400 million NPV US. So one of the low-cost nature of this is its real strength, because it still makes money at today's prices. So the distress that you've seen in some of the producers over this last year wouldn't have happened to this asset. The product's great. Again, an accident of geology. The product's great, and the costs are low. One question I get asked all the time is about logistics and transporting 450,000 tons of concentrate to the coast. And I had the same concern when I first learned about this. Then I went to Mali and I went to a mine. At Marilla, when we get it all up and running, we'll be doing 60,000 litres a month to the plant. And there's half a dozen, 8 mines like that. Everything that comes into Mali comes by truck. 400,000 tons is trivial in the truck movements. It's a non-issue. And now that we have a full logistics team and procurement team understand all that much better, we will be snowed under by logistics providers wanting to truck that. It's just a non-issue. Bulk concentrate trucking, and if you look at someone like Liontown, they're just about as far from the coast as we are. So there's no big deal in this at all. The project is not sensitive to transport. So hopefully, the questions I've seen that answers that. And I won't talk about the lithium market. I think everyone knows that. So what are we going to do? As I said, the decision the board has made is to demerge the assets, to give them the love, focus, and attention each deserves, and give a clear investment proposition to shareholders. You'll be able to make a decision. Do I want both? Do I want more of one or the other, or do I just want one? It's the investor's choice, not ours. This process, I should make clear to everyone, is not simple. If you go and look at some recent ones, from first announcement to actually happening, Iluka and Deterra, I think it's the iron ore spin-out, and Alkane, and I've forgotten the name of the rare earth spin-outs, and Castile out of Westgold. These things are not simple, particularly if you need tax rulings and so forth. So it'll take time and money, but we're on the path. And what we'll be doing is, once we get certainty on that path, we'll probably recruit someone to run that new company. However, there will be a continuing relationship between the two companies. What we do not want to do is throw away the strength that we have in Mali and leverage both companies off that. And we'll figure out a commercial relationship between the two companies on that basis. But why would we go and replicate all that when we now have the benefit of 20 odd years of experience at Marilla? The project data room is open. People are already in there. More are coming. And we intend to appoint an investment bank to manage a formal process. And we should be announcing that hopefully in the next week, who's going to do that gig. The aim there is, a demerger is one thing, but you've still got a business to build, and you need offtake and you need money to do that. And the demerged company will need that too. Also we do need to spend some money on Goulamina to keep the project going. So next one, please. Okay, so here we go. So it's just a wind up now. So as I've said time and time again, you can probably tell I'm pretty chuffed with this mine. It's a great gold mine. There's already 2.35 million ounces there. We're producing gold now, and that's going to grow to 200,000 ounces per annum if we can possibly do it. I see no reason why not. We're leveraging off 300 million US plus of existing infrastructure. If you went out and tried to recruit the Marilla team, take you a year and a half, and they wouldn't know one another. So you are leveraging off a substantial investment in people, culture, and physical infrastructure. And then the thing that I guess I'm a geologist at heart, and I love drilling holes, and are we going to find more of those ultra high grades? It's going to be pretty exciting stuff when we start getting into it. And then the company Firefinch will be a gold company, and we will create, as I've just said, that world-class lithium company with whatever partnering and business arrangements that we manage to uncover in this process. So next one. We're done. So thank you for your attention, and I might let Danica do the Q&A if you want to get on with that. I'm happy to take any question. Don't be scared. I'll answer anything.
All right, sounds good. Talking to the corporate vision and the goals, if you could summarize that for the gold and lithium over the next 3 years, where you see the company going.
Marilla's dead simple. Grow it to 200,000 ounces, heading for a decade mine life, but also being very aware that consolidation in West Africa is a big thing. that's only partly happened. Endeavour, I guess, are probably the leaders in that. But we want to be in the thick of that if it's going to create value. And for Goulamina, I think the path is clear. We get its own personality. We get its commercial arrangements sorted out, and we get full value reflected in shareholders' hands.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We've got a question here from Fintan McDermott, who asked whether we're in a position to give any indication on the likely record date for the new shares in the Lithium Co.
The answer is no. What will happen, there's a lot of preliminary work to be done, particularly in the tax side and the structuring side and so forth. And I also want to give the data room process a little bit of time, because it's possible that we may get something commercial emerge that I might want to, or you would very much like to get completed before a demerger proceeds. But we'll just give that a little bit of time. But there's a lot we need to do before we can do that. That you wouldn't be able to go, for example, should we go and seek a formal ATO ruling, that could take 3 months or more, and you wouldn't be able to give a timetable until you've got that in your hand. So all I can say is that we're going to go as hard and as fast as we can. The investment bank we're going to appoint will be helping us manage that process and go hard. And as soon as we can, we'll get all that information out to shareholders, and we will keep them updated along the way.
Okay. We've got a question here from Andrew, and he says, can you tell us a little bit about PIT 5 and what that is?
Okay, well, PIT 5, I haven't said much. I think I might have mentioned it. What we found, when you actually own something, it's very different from doing due diligence, and even the staff talk to you. What we found is there had been a bit of drilling by Barrick right on the edge of the Marilla pit. It's really probably a couple of those little feathery lodes that you saw in some of those down, very shallow, 10, 15 meters in oxide, right adjacent to the pit. So we've just stuck a whole bunch of meters in there, 1,700, I can't remember. And we actually, and Bill also drilled a deeper hole to try and link the whole thing into those lodes beneath as they were emerging. So we've had a bit of a go at it, and we'll see what emerges. But I would have thought, really, it's going to be important for us in the startup. It might be 10. It's not going to be a huge ore body. It's not going to be 1 million tons or anything. It'll be in the hundreds of thousands of tons. I think, but I haven't seen any of the numbers, so I don't know. The initial ones suggest a couple of 100,000 tons, but cheap, almost free dirt like that within half a kilometer of the ROM pad that we can get there for the startup is pretty important to us. But as soon as I've got some numbers, we'll tell everyone.
That's good. We've got a question from Michael, who asked if we can please sell some Firefinch merchandise to shareholders. It's a good idea. We'll look into that.
Well, on that, if you have a look at the minister's visit video, Sedu, our country manager, has got everyone in really nifty polo shirts and hats. So I asked for some, and Andrew, the chief operating officer, who's in quarantine at the moment, is sitting in a suitcase full of t-shirts. So they get made very cheaply in Mali. But yeah, I think we're in the business of mining gold and lithium, not clothing apparel. I'll leave that to my daughter.
Okay, so Andrew, who we tried to get on the raised hand before, sorry about the technical issues, he's actually sent through a question on the chat about earlier in the presentation, you said something about the end of this week, you'll start a formal process for funding Goulamina. Can you provide any further details on that?
Well, I guess that's where we so it's a pretty standard process. You appoint a merchant bank, you've got a data room. That merchant bank approaches all sorts of people. People approach you, as they already have, and you set up a timetable with non-binding indicative offers, go through shortlists, what they do strategically. And as I said, there'll be a bit of a tension between the demerger process and that, and depending which one looks better or whether you can do them in parallel, I don't know yet. Let's go out there and let's do some price and value discovery, guys, eh? Let's find out what this thing's really worth to people.
Sounds good. So on the drilling updates, I know you've walked through the sort of process of the satellite pits. What do you think? Is there going to be regular drilling updates to the market?
Hope to do that. My man Simon is pulling together all the coating stuff at the moment. I think the last batches of assays are through. or just come through. I haven't seen them. Find out later today. We'll just knock all that up into an ASX release, do all the usual checks and get that out very soon. And we'll just keep doing it as they come, deposit by deposit. And just much the same way as that Nchola release. And then we'll start putting out resource updates, and then ultimately the mine plan and so forth. So there'll be a lot of that coming out, a lot of meters getting drilled, and people are busy. You know, that's it does take a bit of time to validate and get these out into the market.
Okay, this one's a bit of a different one. We've got Res Glow Stocks Fund from Argentina. Did some nice things. Thanks for your great work. You are Mark Bristol, so that's nice. But he said, in relation to the Goulamina demerger, can you give us an estimated market capitalization?
I think that's a game I don't want to play now. Let's get out there, do some price discovery, and let's see if we can generate something that maximizes value when we do it. The aim of doing this demerger is to maximize the value in shareholders' hands and get some visibility on that. The process with an investment bank is part of that. None of these things are a secret. It's all about maximizing value. But I'm not going to speculate on that. You can, and people in Hot Copper can do all the comparisons they want, and I think there's some very nice ones there, and it shows that the value is much, much more than what we're getting today.
So a lot of people have asked as well about the tax dispute. Do you have any updates on that? Or?
Sure. So firstly, I just preface with what I say in a public forum. You want to be a little bit circumspect and treat the due process of law and so forth in Mali with the respect it deserves. So we're going through that process. However, I will repeat that the basis for the revised assessments is incorrect. The amount of gold we sold is the amount of gold we sold, and we have a complete chain of record from the mine, the security, customs records, RAND refinery, gold receipts, and payments. So that's very, very obvious, and there's no factual basis. And independently of us, when first reached out to Barrick, when they came back to me, they had already done their own checks and their records and agree with us to the cent. So there's no real basis in this. In addition to going through the due process there, we are engaged politically. As I mentioned, the Minister for Mines was at site, and I'd probably prefer not really to talk much about what we're doing there, except to say there's no basis for this. We're doing both due process and the necessary politics, and I expect, much as others, I heard indirectly on Teranga, that which has now been gobbled up, that in its life it had, and it's a different country, but this is West Africa, had something like 300 or 400 million worth of these kind of claims, and all the extra they ever paid was in the few tens of millions. I think we should be paying nothing, but anyway, so that's probably where we should leave tax.
Okay, okie dokie.
One last thing is we do have tax losses on hand, 16 million US, and even in the worst case, I see no material impact in the company.
Cool. So a few people also asked about the, you've obviously been working very, very hard, and you probably want to get an MD to help you. Is there any update on that? I'm sure.
Again, that's a process. Some of those who know you, I was non-executive chairman and stepped in when we were in a little bit of difficulty about a year ago, and my job was to turn the thing around, and seem to have done that. I'm keen to stay at a strategic level. I think I add more value there. I think my days have been involved in day-to-day operations of a big mine are behind me. I'd just be a pain. So we need to find someone with the hunger and the desire to go and conquer the world. It's not easy. Not everyone wants to go and work in Africa in COVID times. So, but we're getting there. We're underway.
Okay. There's a few questions on Goulamina. I mean, someone's asked whether there is some talk that the lithium product from Goulamina is substandard. Is there any problems with our product? That's the first I've heard of that.
I've seen, there's a Hot Copper person who I've seen and talks about this. And frankly, without being rude, someone technically competent is best to comment on that rather than idle chatter on hop copper about something they don't know. Probably the best way to answer that is, in the data room are people who buy spodumene concentrate, amongst the biggest in the world. Would they be there if this was? It's just nonsense. I get quite annoyed sometimes at hot copper and these things where people say things and they get a life. And just because you assert something about something where you're not a world-class metallurgist, it does not mean that your opinion holds any weight. For goodness sake, have some trust in your company. We hire top-class technical people and consultants. There's lots of peer review in these things. Of course, we've got a good product. That's why people are in the data room.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, we'll answer a few more questions. There's quite a few here, trying to be sifting through them. But Seb's asked, you mentioned the Marilla ore body most likely continues somewhere. At what point in the future do you expect this exploration work to start? I'm assuming it would start ramping up to 200,000 ounces once you get to that production target.
I'm quite keen to start so we'll be doing infill drilling at Marilla as soon as we can. Some of that's limited by the dewatering, which if we get a bucket load of water out this wet season, we'll be able to get into the pit and drill. So there'll be infill drilling there. We can do some from around the pit. Once we get ahead of ourselves in the satellite pits, I'm quite keen to send, there's a dual purpose rig, a diamond RC rig there. We can do RC collars and diamond tails. So with some of these high grades tail off and there's limited drilling, I'm quite keen to get into that. And it's probably when you look at higher grades, there's chutes within sheets, if you follow what I mean, like pipes within an overall blanket of really high grade. Don't fully understand it yet, but we've got to start mucking around relatively soon. And I think, because this might be a mine that maybe 4.5 million tons a year is not enough. We actually have a SAG mill. The mine was configured differently in its first 3 years, and then they added extra crushing, decommissioned the SAG mill, and just a ball mill now. So there's milling capacity at the mine, and it may be that, I want to go hard. There's nothing magic about 4.5 million ton a year capacity. Maybe it can do more. I don't know. Let's get out and find it. We've got this asset, and I'm sure if we're doing a good job and we're drilling lots of holes and I need more money to drill holes, I'm sure you guys would be really happy to give me money to go and drill 20 meters at 20 grams if that's what we're going to get.
Yeah. On that, there's
have a bit of fun too. I mean, you got to have a bit of fun and excitement around these things. I love this stuff.
Exactly. So there's been quite a few questions come through on costs, capex, that sort of stuff. Whether all-in sustaining costs will come down, as you obviously ramp up production. You want to just address some of the.
I think so. So what I'm telling everyone is we're doing a whole bunch of work now. In the same way as the patients paid to wait for the resource announcement, then let's get this resource study. The reserve studies, costings, and so forth done, and get them out into the market. And rather than speculate on them now. ASX made me put out numbers the other day that I was very unhappy about doing because they're all a bit woolly still at this stage. But let's just wait and see what it looks like. It's really not helpful to speculate. We clearly have an economic deposit of scale. Let's just see what comes to pass in this. What we're doing is already underway and will come out and probably, hopefully in April. Let's just see.
Yeah. Okay. We'll just try this raise hand feature one more time. Okay. Brennan, on the call, I've just allowed you to speak, Brennan. So,
yeah, morning all. Hi, Alistair. Excellent presentation, mate, and great progress over the last 12 weeks since acquiring Marilla. You touched on this just briefly before. You mentioned Marilla moving towards an annual run rate of 200,000 ounces per annum next year. Obviously, that assumes a 4.5 million ton per annum capacity, 1.5 gram per ton head grade. Can you just expand a bit more on the geological upside at Marilla and the potential opportunities there? Down the track, do we see us potentially running at a high run rate like Marilla in the early days?
Well, Marilla's always done is a 4.5 million ton a year rating for putting through hard rock ore. It's done more than that when it's putting through tailings. I think Randgold got it up to about 6 million tons, but the recovery went down. So geological upsides simply are the extensions of Marilla at depth and repeats of those ultra high grades. And in that system, if you look, goes up and down. I don't know where it goes. The geology is a bit more complex. There's things that we haven't yet shown you, like those limits with granitoids and blah, blah, blah. But regionally, in that 700 square kilometers, there's clearly, there'll be another half a dozen of those satellite pits. And whether what size they are, who knows, 50 to 250,000 ounces, maybe a bit more. But there's anomalies everywhere. And much of the exploration was it's older exploration. It was the exploration that we did that would never have found any of Regis's deposits, for example, north of Laverton, where there's cover, deep weathering. So I think there's a lot of upside there. The interesting thing, I think, at Marilla is that may or may not, and as I said, I'm not a mining engineer, but there might be a potential for big gears, drop the cutoff grade, get big face shovels and things and go really large scale and go for a bigger plant. I was on the board of a company, Copper Mountain in Canada. It was mining ultra low grade copper and gold, and it was doing 14 million tons a year with these face shovels. You could drive a Hummer into the bucket. Whether Marilla's like that or not, I don't know, but it's an interesting thing. I think having that SAG mill sit there all set up, it means you should look at that. Mine manager's desperately keen. Drisser's really, really excited. He wants his baby to get bigger. So, but we'll just see. I think all this stuff, Brennan, just has to come through solid technical work, and you throw these ideas around, and let's just see where we end up. That 200,000 ounce run rate, it's a bit of time away, but and we'll see what the ramp up looks like when we disclose it in a couple of hopefully 6 weeks or something like that. We'll see how we're going. Guys in the office will hate me for saying that.
No worries. Thanks very much.
So we've probably got enough time to do one or two more questions. Seems to be quite a few coming through on people wanting to know about, who's in the data room, obviously, because, everyone wants to know that, but we're probably limited in what we can say there, whether they're off takers, major miners, nationality of the companies, where they've been calling in from. No comment on that for the time being?
Look, I mean, obviously I can't say a word about that, but the lithium industry is small, and yeah.
All right, we'll leave it at that. So a few comments on, where you see the gold price going. I guess you're not really.
Gold price is easy. I've always known what the gold price is going to do. I always have done since I first got involved nearly 40 years ago. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, but I don't know when or in what order.
Right. Okay. So if anyone
else... I knew what the gold price was doing, I'd be taking this call from a 200-foot yacht in the Bahamas.
Yeah, that can be our next webinar.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks to everyone for joining the call. Sorry if we didn't get to your question, but if you like, you can shoot them through to me and I'll answer them all via email. My details are just on the bottom of the ASX announcements. Thanks again for joining, and we'll speak to you all again soon.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your attention and putting up with my my strong Australian accent.
All right, signing off.
Bye.
Bye.